So I've written 2 autobiographical books. The first one was called Still Walking, and the concept behind Still Walking is that a number of years ago I had a spinal cord injury, and it changed my life, but it did not stop my progress on my journey of life. So I wrote Still Walking to say, listen, life is a journey, and with God's help and with God's guidance, I am still walking on that journey. A friend of mine came to me and said, so does everything always turn out good for you? Like your book, it's like, it's positive and it's all, and like, don't you ever have bad days? Don't you ever have bad things that happen? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, now that you mention it, I do. And so I wrote my second book, which is called Naturally Still Falling. And the idea is that if you are going to go on that journey of life, you're going to have days when you're going to trip, days when you're going to fall. There's going to be times when you're going through circumstances, and those circumstances are difficult, and they're opposed to you and to your success, and you're going to trip and stumble. And with Still Falling, the idea was that everything that we go through is an opportunity to learn. So I shared 20 stories in there about things that have happened to me, experiences that I've had, and what I have learned from them. And really, I think the things that I've learned speak not to living with a disability, not to being just me, but I think that they're principles that apply to all of us as humans. So I'm going to do a reading from Still Walking. I'm going to do a reading from Still Falling. I'm going to talk for a little bit. I'm going to take some questions from the audience, and I've brought a number of family members here, so I'm counting on them to give me softball questions that will not be too real difficult. Although I do have my children here, and I know that they don't like to do softball questions, so I'm not sure where we're going with that. So let me start with this. I'm going to read from Still Walking, and I'm reading my favorite chapter, okay? It is chapter 11, and this is what it says. Of course, it references what happened in chapter 10, which I can't tell you because I don't have enough time, so you're gonna have to buy the book to find out what happened in chapter 10. Because chapter 11 starts this way. Things moved very quickly after that. It's just a few weeks later that Becky's mother took her for the first sonogram. I told her to be sure and call me at work to let me know the details of the ultrasound. So what happened in chapter 10 was we went through all kinds of stuff to get pregnant. And she did her first sonogram, or did the first pregnancy test, and it said, we are pregnant, right? So this is wonderful. It's an answer to prayer. I'm thrilled to death. And now chapter 11 starts with me sending her off for her first sonogram, and she's going to call me. So as you can imagine, I had a hard time working as I waited for her phone call. When it did come, Becky told me, guess what? They think they found 2 of them. Sure enough, when I got home from work that day, on the refrigerator was a little black and white grainy printout. It showed a black background with 2 little white dots on it. A whole new wave of emotions ran over me. This was fantastic. Not only did it document the fact that we were pregnant, but we were going to have twins. I had all kinds of questions. Do we know if they're identical? Are we sure that both of them are okay? Is this going to create extra risks for Becky? The answers came back fairly quickly. No, they are not identical. Each was in its own sack. As far as the babies being okay, it was way too early to know anything about them. Finally, about extra risk for Becky, her obstetrician, Dr. Solednik, had been involved in the birth of many multiples, twins, triplets, quadruplets, and more. That took a lot of weight off my shoulders, knowing that he knew what he was doing and would take great care of her. My mind started racing about twins. If they're not identical, that meant that I could have one of each. That would be so neat. A boy and a girl, all in one shot. This was what we'd been praying about, and we were so thankful that the Lord had answered our prayers. My father-in-law even said that he had hoped that one of his children would have twins. All this excitement had me greatly anticipating the next sonogram. What would it say about our new babies? How would they be growing? What would their development look like? 3 weeks later, Becky went for that next sonogram. This sonogram took a lot longer than the other one had. It took a lot longer for Becky to call me and tell me what was happening. I wasn't sure what this meant, but I was hoping that it didn't mean something bad. Imagine my surprise when the phone call came and Becky said, honey, they think they heard a third heartbeat. A third heartbeat? Wait, That meant a third baby. We weren't having twins, we were having triplets. My immediate reaction was to tell Becky, no more sonograms. So I will stop my reading of the chapter there. That kind of gives you a flavor for what we were going through. I am very happy to tell you that the results of that sonogram are here with us tonight. I've got my son Josh, who's right there behind us. And Lauren is my daughter, and Chloe is so. And yeah, they sat in birth order, which was really helpful. So, but it's just the concept of still walking is that we go through life, and some of the things that come our direction, they're not exactly what we were expecting, not exactly what we were planning for, and definitely not what we had prayed about. I've got 3 beautiful kids in my life. I wouldn't trade one of them for the world. People are like, oh, you got triplets, like, God bless you. And I'm like, oh, he did. His time's over. And let me just say that it's the concept of how you look at things, right? Because we had been asking God for children. We had been praying that the Lord would bless us with kids. And the Lord said, you know what? It's like instant family, right? Just add water. Here you go. You got 3 in all one shot. This is what you got. And to look at it from the perspective of not a burden of being overwhelmed by 3 children, but to be blessed by God with not 1 but 3, and we can thank the Lord for that. I'm going to read a chapter now from the second book, Still Falling. This is chapter 6. This is also one of my favorite chapters. And I hope that what we learned here is going to be something that's helpful to you also. Even though I classify myself as an expert wheelchair pilot, it seems like every so often my driving skills take a nosedive. Most of the time, I'm able to safely navigate through openings with very little clearance on either side. Then, almost overnight, I begin to brush up against doorways, run into walls, bump into corners, and hit the edges of the furniture. You would think that 20 years of driving a wheelchair would give you a good sense of judging distances. I have the very same model of wheelchair since I left rehab. And here's really, I'll just stop here for a second. August the 20th of this year will mark 25 years since my injury. And it's kind of neat to see the different progressions, the different things that you go through as God brings you through life. So I was injured when I was 21. So I'm now 46. So like, I'm not real good with math. 4 years ago, I'd say there it goes. 4 years ago, when I was 42, it became the tipping point in my life that I had been in a chair longer than not in a chair. I got married when I was 22 and I moved out to Pittsburgh. And so at 44, I had the experience of, now I had lived in Pittsburgh longer than I had lived others outside of Pittsburgh. And 25 years is a long time, and you learn a lot in those 25 years. So going all the way back to coming out of rehab, it's been the exact same manufacturer, the exact same model chair. They've made some improvements, but it's the same thing. It can't be a lack of familiarity with the equipment. It obviously cannot be a problem with me. The first time it happened, I had to think the whole process through before I finally came up with a solution. Thankfully, I came up with an answer before I left my mark on all of the walls, tables, and doorways in our home. About 6 months before our wedding, I got my first power wheelchair. It was awesome. It gave me enormous freedom. About 3 months after our wedding, we moved into our own home. It was custom built and designed to be both accessible and beautiful. When things started to get messed up with my wheelchair, tire scuffs began appearing on the freshly painted walls, announcing Rob was here. Becky would remind me that I needed to be careful. She did not want the house all marked up with tire marks. In my mind, I was being careful. I was not sure what the problem was, but it definitely was not my driving skill. There had to be some reasonable explanation for the change. My first theory was that someone had moved the furniture. One of the things that I was consistently brushing up against was the couch in the living room. I figured the couch must move a little bit every time someone sits down. After a few people sitting on it, it would have moved a lot. We moved the couch back to its original position, but it did not fix the problem. Now I was bumping into the edge of the kitchen counter, which definitely had not moved. I was going to have to come up with a new theory. Theory number 2 was that it was a cushion problem. The cushion that I sit on is filled with air, and the pressure inside can be adjusted to provide an even distribution of my weight and make sure that I don't develop any bed sores. If the cushion was losing air, that would definitely change my perspective. Seemed like a fairly reasonable guess. The good news was it had a simple solution. We checked the cushion. It was a bit low, so we added some air pressure. The additional air pressure helped me sit up a little bit. It did give me a little bit of height, but it did not stop me from bumping into things. Before long, I realized the problem was not a height thing, it was a side-to-side thing. Becky also had a theory. Not surprising. She felt that I might need to go back to rehab and get some driving lessons for my power wheelchair. I did not subscribe to her theory at all. I had only been out of the hospital for about a year. I was not going back. Besides that, I knew 2 things. First, I was being extra careful and super safe. Second, I'm a good driver. For about 4 weeks, I went around being extra cautious when I was coming to narrow places. The weird thing was that even though I was being careful, I was still cutting it very close on one side. For the life of me, I could not figure out why everything seemed to be a little bit skewed. My friend Mark asked me if I was sitting properly in my chair. He said that I looked crooked. I felt fine. When we looked at how I was positioned in the seat, I was sitting perfectly square. He took a step back, looked at me, and said that I still looked crooked. It was then that we realized that the seat of the wheelchair was slightly twisted on the base. It was only a couple of degrees off center, but it was enough to make a difference. So I'll just stop here, and you guys see this chair has a really cool thing on it. It's got a seat elevator, so I can put it up in the air. It's very helpful for when I'm speaking. So when I go, I can be looking down at everybody, and I can be in just this position of authority and wonderfulness. The other time that it's really helpful, though, is getting in and out of bed. So I need someone to help me get in and out of bed. And when I'm getting into bed, what we do is you put the seat up. And in order to get from the chair into bed, it's a down transfer. So gravity is helping get out of the chair. And then when it's time to get out of bed, you put the seat back down, and now it's down from the bed, down into the chair. Very, very helpful. And you can see there's a post right in the middle of this where see there's a post right in the middle? Now, there's a bracket on this one. My first chair didn't have that bracket. All it had was the post. And so what had happened was the seat got twisted on that post. So I go back to reading now. And imagine if your face and your hips were out of line by 5 degrees. Instead of your body walking where you were looking, it veered off 5 degrees to the left. You would be running into things all the time like I did. I'm not sure how long it took to get off by that much, but it explained why my judgments were off. It took a little bit of effort, but my friend was able to help me turn the seat of the wheelchair. Now my line of sight and my line of drive were together. The seat being off-center took place gradually and slowly. In much the same way, our perspective on our lives and ourselves can gradually slip out of line with reality. Now, when I start to bump into things, I know how to fix the problem. The lesson is pretty simple. If your perspective is off, your judgment is impaired. A small change in perspective can create major change in the judgments that you make. So there you are. There's quick reading from both books kind of to give you the flavor of what I've got. The Still Walking is pretty much just a chronological look. Still Falling is each individual chapter. There's 20 individual chapters, and each one kind of stands alone. It has the story, it has what I've learned from it, and it's got a couple questions for you to think about. And then the really cool thing about it, Still Falling has videos that go along with every chapter, so there's another way that the message is reinforced. I'm going to share with you one quick thing, and then we'll do question and answer. As we go through life, you guys know about the optimist and the pessimist, right? The optimist looks at the glass as being half full, and the pessimist looks at it as being half empty. And in our lives, nobody has a glass that's actually half full or half empty. Some of us have a glass and it's like 90% full, and some of us have a glass that I don't know what the percentage is, but there's not a whole lot in there. And you know people that have a glass and it's almost filled to the top, and yet they are miserable. And why is that? The question to face them is, where is your straw? Because what happens is their straw is right in the tippy top, and when they draw on it, and don't get me started about the straw ban, like, oh my word. Really? Okay? But when they draw on that straw, what are they getting? They're not getting any sustenance, they're not getting any substance, they're not getting any material. All they're getting is air. And they're consumed with what they don't have, with what other people have. And there are other people, and they don't have much, but they got their straw jammed all the way in there, and they are enjoying all that they've got. They are drawing their sustenance from that. That's where they're getting their hope, their joy, their life, their fulfillment. So the question for you guys, and before we start the question and answer session, I ask you a question. It's something to think about. Where's your straw? I don't know how much you got in your glass, but my encouragement is take that straw, jam it all the way in there, and draw out the joy and happiness from what you have. All right, so thank you very much. Questions? Yes?
How do you drive?
How do I drive? Well, if you're asking
Poorly.
if you're asking for a qualitative assessment of my driving, my wife would say I do not drive well. Our van does not have a passenger side brake, but there is a foot mark on the floor where the passenger side brake would have been. So this wheelchair actually has a bolt that sticks down out of the bottom of it. I drive right from the wheelchair. So I've got a ramp or a lift that will get me up into the van. I pull right into the driver's position, and that bolt locks down into the floor. It holds me in place while I'm driving. And then I drive with my hands. I've got a little thing over here. It's a lever that's got my gas or brake on it. And I've got a piece that holds my hand in the steering wheel. So what I will do now is I'll just say this. I got the big silver van out there, and I'll give everybody a 5-minute head start, so you don't have to worry about the guy driving out his hands. You can get out of here before it. But yeah, so getting around. Now, here's what's amazing. Last year in June, I was laid off from my full-time job. And it was one of those things, it was a voluntary layoff. They were looking for volunteers. I was reading the handwriting on the wall, and I figured I will take a severance package now while it's offered instead of waiting until they are going to let me go anyway. So, and I've been praying about it because I felt like the Lord was moving in a different direction. So it's time to go. So about 2 weeks after I've been laid off, I'm doing this. I'm doing speaking. I'm doing writing. I'm doing that, and I only had one speaking engagement lined up, and it worked out, and I was thankful the Lord really demonstrated, okay, I've got you, and we're going in the right direction. One of the things I've been praying about, and it's actually the reason why I'm here tonight. I have been praying and asking the Lord, I would love to have an intersection between my faith and my speaking stuff. And what I would love to do is, whenever I'm out having a speaking engagement or wherever I go, I'd love to be able to stop somewhere and share my story of faith and give God all the honor and glory and say, this is what the Lord's doing in my life. 2 weeks after, I got a phone call, and it was from a guy. He says, listen, I need you to come speak at my business, and I'm wondering if you can speak at our church while you're here too. And I'm like, okay, Lord, that's what you asked me to do. I'm like, this is phenomenal. He says, I'm in Manitoba, Canada. Oh. I said, okay, Lord, if that's what you want. And so I talked to my wife, and my wife's like, you remember what happened to Jonah when he didn't follow what the Lord was telling him? So, yeah. So I have a brand new van. I got it last April, and it's got 32,000 miles on it because we're not, no moss grows on a rolling stone, right? Just out there trying to go everywhere that the Lord is opening up the doors. So it's really a blessing to me, and hopefully it's a chance to share what God's doing in my life. Yeah.
What inspired you to start writing and share all of your experiences with others?
So, really, it started off with telling stories. My wife, you guys watch The Golden Girls? Yeah. I start talking, and my wife's like, here we go, St. Olaf stories. Really? And I'm like, I think these stories are really interesting. And she says, that makes one of us. But I was sharing my story and talking about what God had done in my life. And really I thought, more people kept saying that, like, you should write that down. You should share that. You should. And so I thought, not everybody has the chance to come and be bored by having to sit and listen to me like this. I should afflict everybody in the whole wide world with the opportunity to be bored by reading my material just so nobody's listening to me. So I figured that was really what started it. And I mentioned earlier that my friend talking to me about the journey of life, saying, okay, sometimes you got to share about the bumps and the bruises and the times that you fall. So that was kind of what moved the second book. And then I've actually got a third book. I wrote a kid's anti-bullying book. It's called Who, Me, Yeah, You. And I'm going to tell you what, tonight I'm going to do something I've never done anywhere else. The Still Walking book is $10. The Still Falling book is $15. And the Who, Me, Yeah, You book is $10. I will do all three books for $30 and make it easy. That way, hopefully it'll work out. So if that works for you, that's fine. And if you just want to say, listen, I heard what you had to say, and I can't imagine that your writing is all that interesting anyway, I'm all right with that too. But that's, as far as the kids' anti-bullying book, I really wanted to give kids a lesson to say it's personal responsibility, okay? The concept of who, me, yeah, you is that there's the person that is being bullied. There is the person that is doing the bullying, and then there's all of the bystanders. And here's the facts. In 90% of the cases, if somebody speaks up, the bullying stops within 30 seconds. So if you're not the bully, if you're not being bullied, it's okay. You still play a role in this, and your role is to speak up for other people. And so it's really a kind of sharing the message that says we all have a place in this, we all have a part to play, and it's an opportunity to really make a difference in the world around us. Other questions? Yeah.
I was going to ask you, from the time that your accident occurred and the time that you have gotten to where you are now, how was the journey for you personally?
Okay, so the question is, from the time that my injury occurred until now, kind of how has the journey been?
Yes. From the beginning.
From the very beginning. Well, you have given me a wonderful question. And I'm going to start off by telling you this. This is another chapter from Still Walking. At the time of my injury, my girlfriend was on the beach, saw what happened to me. And for the first couple of days, it was touch and go as to whether or not I was going to survive. I was on a breathing machine. Once I got off that, I decided the first person I want to talk to is her. And we got to talk about us. And I said to her, listen, I don't know what the future holds, but it looks like it holds a lot of limitations. And if that's overwhelming for you, I care about you, and I care enough to say, you have got to take care of yourself. And whatever that means, I'm all right. And I said, I don't know what you're feeling towards me right now, but if you're just feeling pity for me, if you're just feeling sorry for me, that's not what I want in a long-term relationship. Go ahead and take care of yourself. And I said, the last thing is, I don't know what kind of pressure you're under from other people. And those people that would say, like, you can't leave him now, this is his hour of greatest need. I said, those people are not a part of this relationship. It's about you and it's about me. And right now, it's about you. I give you full license to do whatever you need to do. And she got really mad. And with big tears in her eyes, she says, listen, what I love about you has nothing to do with whether or not you can walk. I love you for who you are on the inside. And if you think you can get rid of me that easy, you've got another thing coming. From day one, that taught me that what's going on in here is valuable. And it taught me that this is not what defines me. It's heart, personality, character. Needless to say, when you find somebody that loves you like that, you marry them. You don't ever let them get away. That's Becky. She taught me from day one what it means to live with this. It's just the external. It doesn't change what's going on inside. The other piece that I was struggling with was faith. Because I believe in the God that created the heavens and the earth. I believe in the God who can walk on water, who can calm the sea, who can bring the dead to life. That's the God I believe in. And that's the God that I pray to. And so I'm laying in a hospital bed and I am calling out to God and I'm praying, Lord, I know that you can heal me. I know that you can fix it. As a matter of fact, what I was doing, I could see my toe kind of sticking out at the end of my bed. And I thought, Lord, I don't need everything to start moving all at the same time. I'll just take a small twitch, like wiggle toe. That's where I'm going. Now, for you guys that like have a spinal cord injury, you don't really think about wiggling toes, right? Like you just wiggle it. And so I'm thinking to myself, I don't know exactly what a wiggle toe thought is, but I'm praying and I'm thinking and I'm peeking and nothing's happening and nothing's changed it. And I'm starting to get a little frustrated because I'm thinking the God that I believe in, I know that God is capable. I know that with God, all things are possible, right? I know that. So it's obviously not a God problem. It's got to be a Rob problem. Do I not have enough faith? Am I not praying the right prayer? Am I not believing enough? Like, what is the problem here with me? Why is this not working? And it's amazing the way that the Lord does this, right? My dad came in to visit me in the hospital one day, and he was just sharing what one of his friends had told him. And the guy said, you know, it would be miraculous. It would be a wonderful miracle if God were to heal Rob's spinal cord and he could walk again. But what might be a bigger miracle is if Rob is able to live in the faith of God and following the path of God from the wheelchair. That might be an even bigger testimony to the power of God. And that really kind of put things into context for me, understanding from very early on, the Lord never promised to fix all my problems. The Lord has not promised to give me an easy life. What he said is, every situation that you go through, I will go through it with you, right? When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the floods, they will not overflow you. And through the fire, you will not be burned. Why? It's because he's with us. And every circumstance that we go through, he said, this is an opportunity for you and me to be closer together at the end than we were at the beginning. And it's really changed the way that I pray. I used to pray like, God fix this, and God fix that, and God make everything better. And what I have prayed now is, Lord, every circumstance that your children travel through, may they be closer to you at the end. May they understand you in a way at the end that they never did at the beginning, because that's something that will have eternal value. So that's kind of been my journey. I was joking beforehand. The Lord has blessed me with a wonderful wife, and she reminds me every day just how blessed I am to have her. But it's a circumstance where every 6 to 12 months I crash. And I say, this is really hard. This isn't church language. This sucks. Okay? And the Lord has been so gracious in revealing me. He says, what is it that you're lacking? What is it that your life doesn't have? You have a beautiful wife, beautiful family. You're surrounded by people that love you. You are able to serve in the church. You are able to use the abilities that you have. What is it that you lack in life? Yes. God has given me everything I need. Everything to have a joyful and full life, I've got it in Christ. And so that's something that I haven't learned 100% to this point, and I still need to learn that all the time. But that's kind of the thumbnail sketch of how I got to be where I am today with God's help. All right.
Oh, well.
Go ahead. Last question.
Yay! Birthday boy gets the last question. No, I was curious if you ever have anyone with, mobility issues or other disabilities that contact you or reach out to you, and if so, what's that like?
Great question. And what I have, a lot of people will come to me and be like, you got to talk to my son. He's in a wheelchair too, and he needs help with his attitude. He needs help to see the right side of things. And I said, I can't do that for anyone. They have to kind of go through their own experience. You've got to learn your own way. And if they ever want to talk, I'm willing to do that. One of the things that I have come to learn, though, is the Lord has given me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and to listen, okay, and to really listen intently to what people are saying, and to be able to hear what they're going through, and to acknowledge that there are days when life is really hard. I'll tell you one last quick story. I got a call one day, and so on my phone, I have a way that when it's a business call, it shows up differently. And so I'm excited one day because I was at work and I got a business call, and I logged off because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking company time to do my personal business. And the guy that I'm talking to says, "Hi, Rob, this is," and he says his name, and I say, "Oh," and I'm not sure, like, do you expect me to recognize this name? And he says, that's exactly what he says. He says, "You recognize my name?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't. Have we met before?" He says, "No, I've been in the news." Okay. He says, "Does that strike a bell?" And I'm like, "You're gonna have to help me." He says, "I am the guy that got the local health insurance building shut down for a bomb threat." Okay. He says, "What happened was, in my phone conversation with them, now this is UPMC Health Insurance up in Pittsburgh. It is one of the largest skyscrapers in the city of Pittsburgh. He got the whole thing evacuated, and they brought in the bomb sniffing dogs and the whole 9 yards, right?" And he's telling me the story. And what had happened was he was on the phone with the insurance company, and they weren't giving him what he wanted. And he said something along the lines of, like, it's a wonder that people don't come down there and blow you up. And they took that as a terroristic threat. And so he's on house arrest now at home. And he says, "My girlfriend got your book, and she gave it to me, and she thought it would be helpful. And I'm wondering if you have a couple minutes to talk." And I'm thinking, with that backstory, I'll talk to you. So, so it's a matter of, listen, everybody's got problems. Everybody's got limitations. Mine are a little bit more obvious than other people's. But, I'm happy to talk to folks. But I also understand that where I am today is a work of God. And for people that don't know the Lord, it's no wonder there's depression and there's anxiety and there's all kinds of things. And I'm not saying, for people that do know the Lord, there's depression and anxiety. There's all of that to go through. And so my basic message is, there is an answer. And that answer is found in one person and one person only. That is Jesus Christ. And if you are having problems in your life, turn to Him. And He's got it for you. And it's Liz, right? Liz and I were talking earlier. And there are days when you feel alone, right? You feel like, "Lord, I don't feel as close to you." And what I was sharing with her is, those days the Lord says, "I haven't gone anywhere." Right? If you and I aren't close, that's not my fault. I'm right over here. Come on back. Because there is nothing in the world that I want more than for you and me to be close. And so the Lord is gracious and kind. He says, no matter how far you wander, no matter where you go, but you come right on home. And the story of the prodigal, right? You come home, and I'm going to put the robe on. I'm going to give you the ring. I'm going to give you the shoes. We're going to rejoice and be merry and glad. I ran merry and glad together. We're going to rejoice and be mad. But we are going to rejoice because it's about your relationship with me. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
All right. What I would usually do now is give you a closing thought for the day. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to close in prayer. And if you want to get some books, you're welcome to come on up. I think we can do credit card. We can do however it works for you. And I'll be happy to sign them. And I want to say thank you guys so much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. And let's pray. Father, we are thankful. Thankful to be here and to talk about our life circumstances, to talk about what's going on, but it all comes back to you. And we just pray for anyone here that doesn't know the Lord as their personal Savior, that they would understand there is nothing more that God wants than to bless them. And He has made it all possible. He sent His Son, the one that He loves, the very best of heaven, came here to pay the price so that all of our sins can be taken away and that we can have a personal relationship with God. How amazing it is that God that created everything says, I want to have a relationship and I want you to call me your Father. I want you to be my child. And He paid the price so that can happen. And Lord, for those of us that do know Christ, may we look at every experience and ask, Lord, what can we learn from this? And how can we be closer to you as a result of what we've gone through? We ask all this for the honor and glory and in the precious name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Yeah, that was real nice, the round of applause. My kids are always asking, like, did they clap because of what you said, or did they clap because you were finally done talking?
Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching this live video. I'm going to be giving away a copy of Rob's book, Still Fallen. So if you want to be put in the drawing for that giveaway, please make sure you like and share this video. Thanks.